Thank you everybody so much for hosting me and giving me some time. Awesome to see many familiar faces. I'm Katie, and I'm going to be talking about the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act. And I'm here, like John said, representing New Economy Project. And our mission is to build a just economy rooted in cooperation, neighborhood and racial equity, and ecological sustainability. And we anchor the New York City Community Land Initiative, which is a coalition, which we'll talk about more in a moment. So this is actually outdated. This is, I have to give a shout out to my colleague Will for this presentation, but this is a presentation he used last year. So actually we now have over 20 community land trusts in New York City, who are part of the Nicely Coalition. What is a community land trust, especially in housing? In particular, this is a model where residents control their buildings through various models. I think many folks here are familiar with these models. And then the CLT owns the land underneath with a 99-year ground lease and ensures permanent affordability. So this is the CLT model. This ensures collective control and also permanent affordability. How do CLTs work? Quick and dirty. So they're democratically governed. They're run by a board representing key constituencies, including residents. They are by and for the community, right? So their ongoing community organizing and partnerships are crucial to their long-term success. And we have a lot of CLTs in New York City that are developing deep membership models, doing tenant organizing and partnering in coalitions with other local institutions. And then, yeah, the CLT is a flexible model, so it supports many different uses, right? We're not just fighting for decommodified housing. We've got amazing CLTs working on campaigns to create new green space, to create community health centers. So this is a model that can be used for a variety of different projects. Why is this important? I really think this room needs no primer on this, but yeah, look at this amazing corporate acquisition of 3+ unit buildings from 2013 versus 2014. So we know that corporate landlords and speculators have been trying to buy up our city, and we are fighting partially through the CLTs to say, no, this is a city for New Yorkers. It's a place where we deserve to stay and thrive. So we are fighting together in this coalition for the Community Land Act, which is a package of bills at the city level. And the one we're going to be talking about today is the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act. But if you're interested in any of these other projects, I actually work mostly on the state campaign for the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, which is the state version of COPA. If you're interested in any of these, feel free to reach out to me after the call, and happy to talk to you about the other bills in the package. But what is COPA? So COPA is aimed at stabilizing and preserving affordable housing, expands community and tenant ownership. This is a policy that's proven to work well. It's preserved already tens of thousands of affordable homes in San Francisco and Washington, D.C. And we have a strong advantage here in New York City. For COPA, we have a robust nonprofit housing sector. And so COPA would allow tenant organizations and CLTs to leverage this incredible nonprofit housing field that we have to acquire and decommodify housing. So how would COPA work? So COPA, this is the COPA process simplified here, but essentially what would happen under the COPA legislation is that when a landlord decides to sell, they would have to give their notice of intention to the city. And then the city would open up the sale to qualified nonprofits who would be allowed to make an offer for the building. The landlord can accept the offer from the tenants, or from the nonprofit working with the tenants, or they can seek other market offers. But if they get another offer from a private buyer, the qualified entities, the nonprofits have an opportunity to match that offer. So essentially, COPA inserts into the sales process of private sales opportunity for nonprofits to purchase housing. And it's theoretically possible for nonprofits to do this without the tenants being organized and in touch with the nonprofits, but that would be, it's kind of shocking, I think, if that happened. And so the idea here is that the nonprofits that are making these offers, that are seeking to buy buildings, are doing so because the tenants are organized, maybe by the nonprofit, maybe by a CLT or some other institution, but the tenants are organized. They want this acquisition. They are working with the nonprofit to ensure it. So this is also about tenant acquisition and tenant control. Just a couple snapshots from San Francisco. Since 2020, COPA in San Francisco has preserved 230 affordable homes. That's pretty amazing, and 13 commercial spaces for local businesses. It's established transparency in the real estate market, making it easier to organize tenants, fight speculation, and hold landlords accountable. It's built the capacity of nonprofits to provide affordable housing and created a preservation ecosystem without negatively impacting building owners. This is just a couple photos and shout outs to tenant organizations that are fighting to acquire their buildings or fighting to acquire buildings in their neighborhood. I think many of you guys know John Lavia. He's with Save 63 Tiffany. They actually just acquired their building in Brooklyn. They were working with Fifth Avenue Committee to acquire their building and make sure that the residents can stay when when the tax credit expires. So that's amazing. One of our land trustees, New York CLT, I think many folks also know about them and have heard about them. They purchased a building, 248 Arlington, and are working with the tenants to convert the building to permanently affordable tenant-controlled housing. So this is a helpful photo, shows you East New York CLT owns the land, and then the tenants soon will be owning their own units. And then Northwest Bronx, everyone's familiar with Northwest Bronx. They have a Bronx CLT. They have been working on acquiring property, and similarly to East New York CLT, decommodifying, converting to permanent community control and affordability. All right, so support for COPA in 2025. This is a really supported bill. We are right at the finish line. We need all hands on deck. We really are. I know we always say this as organizers, like we're right there, but really with this bill, we really are right there. And so really any support that you can throw at this is really meaningful because we're right at the edge. So we're nearly at a veto-proof majority. We've got 32 council members and we need 34. Our top targets are Chris Marte, Linda Lee, Dinowitz, and Lynn Schulman, and of course the speaker, Adrienne Adams. Over 150 community groups have endorsed the Community Land Act and really wide range of organizations. So this is a very strong campaign. We have regular meetings. You're welcome to endorse the bill package and attend them and help us strategize. We're in active negotiations with HPD about the bill language and what all is going to shake out. And so really we need as many community groups as possible saying we need this to pass this year, but also we need, a strong version of this to pass this year that is going to empower any group of tenants that is organized to be able to take over their building. This is just some stats that New Yorkers want social housing, but we know that. Just because we want it doesn't mean we don't got to fight for it. Okay, this is my true purpose in being here because actually I think most of the people in this call probably know more about COPA than I do. So really what I'm hoping today is that everyone can take 3 minutes right now, and this does truly take 3 minutes, and send an email on behalf of the Community Land Act. So I'm going to drop, or somebody might have, oh, brilliant, Casey, already dropped it in the chat, the link. So please click on that link that's in the chat, or you can type in the URL that's on your screen. And I'm going to show you actually what pops up for you so that you know what to expect. So it will bring you to this landing page. This email will send to your personal council member and then to the speaker. And you just have to put your name, first and last, your street address, and that part's really important so they know you're a New Yorker and you could vote them out of office if you feel like it, and your email, and then you're welcome to change the text here, but this is a pre-populated email advocating for the Community Land Act. And then you just click send and it will auto send emails on your behalf. And again, we really are right at the finish line here. Every email counts. In particular, if you are a constituent of any of, I think most people here are Botcher's constituents. Is that right, John?
This is his district, yes, right here in Midtown. I wouldn't say everybody's part of that constituency, but we, of course, reach beyond those borders.
Anyone on the call happen to randomly be a constituent of any of these council members? If not, Botcher can always use more emails, and in particular, Adrian Adams needs to hear every day from people all over the city. So,
Right?
so let's just take like 2 minutes because that's how long I think really it will take to send these emails.
I just did. Is everybody working?
It might take less than 2 minutes. If anyone has any questions, let's do them now.
You mentioned, yeah, I saw Marte on that list. He hasn't signed on?
Yeah, so Marte is very specifically opposed to this bill because he's concerned about one particular nonprofit housing provider that has not been a good landlord and in fact has been sort of speculative in some ways in his district. And he's worried about them buying up more properties. I think if you guys know Christopher Marte, you have a relationship with him, please speak to him. I think that the idea that this entire bill is going to be held up for fear of one bad nonprofit landlord,
Mhm.
to me is a little bit preposterous. Like in the meantime, we've got hedge funds and
Right.
various other predatory actors buying up land and housing. So I think the concerns for what it's worth around nonprofit affordable housing providers are real, right? These are not perfect landlords, right? And in fact, they are affected by many material real problems in our society like poverty. We know that many of them are still in debt and struggling with their residents' rent arrears after the pandemic, right? So there's some real challenges that many nonprofits are facing. And we know historically many tenants have had to organize against their nonprofit landlords. But we know that COPA is a successful policy. We know that the vast majority of nonprofit landlords are going to use it in concert with organized tenants in a respectful, responsible way. And, we have to fight for a just implementation as well. So that's on us as well. But yeah, if anyone knows Christopher Marte and wants to have a off the record conversation with him about it, he could use some encouragement, I think.
We could probably arrange that. He was at their Communities Together Fest, right? You saw him, yes?
Yeah, I saw him. I saw him, and someone said something to him about COPA
Just
and looked pleased, but yeah.
um,
Other folks, questions? That's Len. Hey, Len.
I actually have two questions. One is, what actually does the COPA bill do? And number two, is there a connection with a financial institution to get capital to allow tenants to do this? In other words, directly with tenants to get access to capital for purchasing buildings. And actually, I have three questions. The other question is it possible to kind of somehow work this project into public housing? Because there's this
oh,
whole question about how public housing is going to continue now that Trump has cut off funds, and there's a whole question about the demise of Section 9 and Section 8, the Section 8 housing. So there's a lot there.
that's
Totally. Okay.
where I was going to go. That's great. Yeah.
Okay, great question. So I'm pulling up this thing. It's in development. So this is you guys are seeing the draft version of it, but essentially this lays out the COPA process. You can see it inserts opportunities to purchase right into the sales process. So first step is the landlord decides to sell, and under COPA, qualified nonprofits, that's like a list that the city keeps that you can apply to be part of. They're notified of this intention to sell. So they get like a notification. And then it inserts this part into the sales process where they get the first opportunities to submit a statement of interest and say, we want to buy this. And then the property owner can accept or reject. So unfortunately with COPA, we can't compel landlords to give up their property, right? It's just about making sure that the first opportunity to make an offer is coming from a nonprofit. And then they get another opportunity, right, if their offer is rejected, but the property owner wants to go forward with a third party, private buyer, they have the right to try to match that offer. And this can be really important. Like actually the building, this building saved 63 Tiffany's. The tenant leader, John Leva, he waged a super intensive campaign against the landlord. And even once they had the money together, the landlord for a while like didn't want to sell to him because he was just like, I don't
Uh-huh.
want to sell to my organized tenants. Like he just was resentful of them.
Right, right.
And so this is an important not only I'm hoping this is going to slow down, this is what landlords are afraid of, but I'm hoping it's going to slow down the speculative housing market and sort of slow down the process of sales. but also obviously it inserts this necessity to open the sale up to nonprofits, which is important because sometimes landlords just want to sell really quickly or they actively don't want to sell to the organized tenants. So, and again, unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't like say they must sell to the tenant. That would be illegal, but they must sell or unconstitutional. We can't compel them in quite that way to sell, but we can provide the opportunity. So that's the actual how the bill works. And then the funding, so for TOPA, actually the state level bill, we are fighting for corresponding funding. COPA, we aren't fighting specifically in the COPA campaign for funding. There's already a number of funding sources at the city and state level, both for community land trusts, but also for acquisitions and rehab. We need a lot more money. So, this is sort of a statewide campaign for decommodified housing. So COPA is one strategy, TOPA is one strategy. The funding is a related strategy, but it's almost its own strategy. So we're going to keep waging various city and state budgetary campaigns in the next, decade to build out and implement these programs. But currently, yeah, we're not waging a specific city budgetary campaign with COPA. There are some programs like Neighborhood Pillars that are already doing this work for distressed housing. But yeah, we're going to need to build that out. Yeah, Caitlin? Seeing Caitlin's hand raised?
Yes, I'm so inspired by your public bank campaign, and if there's ways in which COPA and the financing question that Len asked might, also be relevant to your public bank campaign. I loved all the visuals. That map just was so horrifying with all the pink. So thank you so much.
Yeah, so Caitlin, I want to send you guys, there's also an amazing CLT map, if you like maps, that we created this year. Question is say it one more time.
Right, about the public bank, the new economy.
Oh, the public bank, of course.
Campaign,
So,
which, yeah, we need.
Yeah, so totally. And we talk about them in that way. I mean, COPA realistically is going to pass well before public bank. So public bank, though, is like we're really trying to sell it actually to Zoran to say that like he needs to find funding mechanisms for his various plans, including decommodifying housing. And we would love to see him fight with us, fight the state to get a public bank for New York City. And for folks quickly that don't know what public bank is, we put our public deposits that we generate from our income, our tax dollars, we put those into private banks, which are, as everybody knows, like totally evil, bad institutions that do things like invest hundreds of millions of dollars into fossil fuels every single year, amongst many other bad things. And so we could actually have a different model where we take our public deposits and we put them into a public bank. And then that public bank invests in CLTs, invests in green rehab, invests in whatever we need in our communities, keeps that money circulating in our communities, and divests it from these completely demonic institutions that we have them in right now. So yeah, it's a great idea. It would work well with our COPA and TOPA, and it's just about building the power to win a public bank. Any other, I feel like I'm missing one of Len's questions. Oh, about
Yes,
public housing.
public housing.
Other folks in the call I feel like would know a lot more about this, so I want to open it up. But the thing I've seen around public housing is that there's actually some public housing groups that are trying to turn into community land trusts. And if you're interested in that, I can connect you. The person that I know that's really into that he's an organizer from Ravenswood, and he comes to our Nicely meetings. I'm happy to connect you guys.
That would be
Absolutely.
great. That would be
Yeah,
great.
okay, let me make a note to do that. But I
Yeah,
don't
that'd be
know
super.
if anybody else who's campaigning for COPA has thoughts on this on the call. I just I don't know that much about the connections to public housing, but I think it's a really wonderful question, and I'll also ask our team.
I saw a hand from Renee.
Resident management corporations, according to the 964 regulations, have been done in the past in public housing. They failed, with the exception of one that's now in New Orleans, which is project-based Section 8. So it's nothing new. We all know about it.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you for that context.
Well, can I ask a fast question
yeah,
about
go
the
for it.
120 days? So within the 120 days, what's stopping the landlord from creating like a fake private buyer, interested buyer that's completely fake? I mean, what's stopping that from being into the mix? The third phase of the 4-phase slide that you had up before. and this was kind of like John Leva had asked that, and I can't get it out of my mind now. Like, what's stopping a landlord from saying, okay, this entity is interested, and now that the 120 days is over, I'm not accepting your offer, nonprofit. Now you have to match this fake interested buyer.
I need to look at the bill language. TOPA, there's like a part of the bill that says if the landlord or a private buyer wants some is offering some totally crazy number for the building, that you can actually do an appraisal to get like a number that is that
Okay.
everyone can work with. So I don't know if that's in COPA though. I have to see. I don't know if anybody else knows. I'm assuming we put an appraisal thing in there. Let me follow up with you about that
Yeah.
question, Alex. Anyone else have responses to any of the questions? People that might know more than more than me. Otherwise, Alex, I'll follow up with you about this question.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Okay.
Did everybody go online and
Did
use
everybody
that
send your
tool?
emails?
Did everyone?
Yep.
Okay. I see a thumbs up on that. Thank you so much, Katie. I'm
Yes.
always we're an endorser, correct?
Yes, you
Yeah,
are.
a
Also,
while back you
just make
mentioned,
sure.
yeah.
I think you and I talked about this. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of progress
So
in
that, I've worked on campaigns for many, many years, and this campaign really, like since I checked in with John last, has progressed. It is really truly kind of progressing every week. Like we're getting, our higher hanging council member fruit on board. We are getting more endorsements from organizations around the city. Like it really is like building momentum. It's super exciting to be a part of. And it's not too late to join and help us get it over the finish line. Like this is the time to get active. This is the time to become a COPA expert. So yeah, I'm gonna drop my email in the chat.
And what we'll do, I saw
I've-
some hands, some people willing to reach out to Chris, and maybe we'll see if we can get a meeting or however we need or connect you to, get them to meet with you. We'll certainly do that. And I see a few hands here.
But
Real
I
quick.
must have missed the part about the connection to the financial institution that Lynn had talked about getting capital to purchase the buildings. How would that be done? And what is a qualified nonprofit? Thank you.
Yeah, so qualified nonprofit, that's like a list of qualified purchasers that the city keeps, and you can apply to be a part of it. So like our CLTs are trying to become qualified purchasers.
And where would you do that?
You do that with the city, and Luana, if you're part of an institution that you're interested in becoming a qualified purchaser, just email me and I can send you the info about how to apply.
And the financial institution about getting capital?
So there's a variety of existing funding mechanisms, and if you put this in the email, I can send it to you. We're actually creating a resource about all of the existing city and state funding mechanisms. They're insufficient though, and so we are already waging campaigns, mainly at the state level, but I think we're going to be waging more of a city level campaign as well this year. We're waging campaigns for more public dollars to go to this. We need depending on the scale of acquisition that we want to do, we need, hundreds of millions of dollars actually. So we're not there yet. But in the meantime, we have programs like Neighborhood Pillars at the city level that have done some of this acquisition financing in the past and
Thank
rehab financing.
Cool. Danny,
This is very exciting. I'm so glad that we are thinking about housing outside of the market, which has so clearly failed us over and over and over and over again. So thank you for bringing this forward. I'm also a very active member of DSA, and I'm happy. I don't know if you've made connections with DSA already. Maybe you have, but I'm happy to also bring DSA into this fight. I think it's a really important one, especially in this new era that hopefully we're entering in, where we're trying things outside of the market. It's really good to have things ready in advance so that we're not starting from scratch. So thank you for the work, and I will DM you my email, and let's be in touch about DSA and other efforts too. Thank you.
I'd love
Great.
that. And I'm putting the chat in. I think that you and I have met before in those old onboarding membership calls with Josh Crashauer.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm a DSA member too. And
for the Eco-Socialist Working Group.
for an
Probably.
eco-socialist working group,
Yep.
it's all connected.
Yep.
So let's definitely chat.
Yes, would love that.
DSA
Would love
is
that.
focused mainly on that state campaign for social housing, but
That's right.
it's all related, and we've done
It's
some.
all related. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It
It's
needs to
part of
be,
the
in my
same
opinion, we need one big push of as many different, varieties of housing that we can do.
Cool.
So
Okay, awesome.
thank you.
Let's connect. And then
I
Len,
think that there is some history that is worth digging into and researching. The city in the past has taken over buildings, and then there were REM sales. There were kind of people who would squat in a building, and then essentially they would be given the right to buy the building. I have friends who did that. So this was years ago, but I think with a new administration, we really do need to begin to look into the ways to dig into and counter the rapacious and horrific exploitation that takes place among these LLCs. We have LLCs that own 60, 70, 80 buildings and have management contracts and essentially ignore most of their obligations as landlords. And I think we need to find a way to revive the idea of eminent domain, city taking over buildings and essentially making them public and putting tenants in charge of their buildings. So that's just, you talk about being in DSA. There's some creative things that can be done with some imagination.
the Social Housing Development Authority bill, which Danny and I are talking about at the state level, would give a new state development authority eminent domain power. So we think of eminent domain as like a tool that Columbia uses to displace residents in their neighborhood. But we actually could have a development authority that uses eminent domain to take properties from neglectful and abusive landlords. Again, that is like a, I mean, I hope we win it next year, but I think that is like some years down the line, we have to build a lot of power for that campaign. But yeah, that's part of the vision of that development authority, is it would have those powers, which I'm super excited about. Yeah.
One thing I should say about the Social Housing Authority is that it's actually based on public housing. So many of the things there are from public housing. They just amped it up. One thing we need to understand is that public housing is social housing. And so what's going to most likely happen is all assets and all efforts will be going into social housing, and they'll forget about public housing. So there's going to be like a dichotomy between the two, and there's going to have to be a balance. Public housing from the state level has been basically thrown away at this point. So they'll put the efforts there. So instead, we should think about how to work within both. But nobody ever mentions that. And that
We've talked about that before, and that's an excellent point. And Katie, you and I talked about how way back when we wanted to connect with the public housing when you were right to council.
And for what it's worth, I think this is like a major Achilles heel of our housing movement and our tenant movement in New York City. Is we've not included or built enough the leadership of people in public housing to be not just contributing to this vision around social housing, but leading it. And I'm with you fully, Renee. And I think it's something we need to work towards. And I think this space, actually, MSCC is a great place to start doing this kind of just solidarity work, because public housing residents are tenants, and there's no reason that this population should be sort of siloed within our movement. And that is functionally how it's been.
Can I leave Katie with one final thought? You don't have to respond, Katie, but Sam Stein said that the biggest challenge a community land trust has is acquiring the land. And therefore, we would love to see everybody in the Nicely Coalition fight side by side to stop this land grab that's going on. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. Good point, Alex. Thank you so much, Katie, and we'll speak soon.
The Community Purchase Act is a bill that is pending currently at the state legislature. In our coalition, the New York City Community Land Initiative, we are fighting to pass this bill. We're fighting to fund this bill. And what this bill would do is give tenants the opportunity, if their building goes up for sale and a private buyer makes an offer, it gives tenants the opportunity to make their own offer and potentially purchase their building and decommodify it and make sure that it's affordable, it's safe, and that the residents can live there in perpetuity.
Great.